would like all the board members of the chamber and the ambassadors to stand. So they're the backbone of what we do. So. Okay, and also I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to our first responders. They're the best. All right, with that, Mayor John Call.
Good morning. Rick, thanks for not taking my coffee. I saw him walking off with coffee and I'm like, oh no, don't take my coffee. Anyway, welcome to the 2026 State of the City Address. I want to begin by thanking all of you for taking time out of your busy lives to join us here today. We got a lot of exciting stuff to touch on today. I got a lot of slides to share on the screens for your viewing pleasure. I'll try not to ramble too much on any one topic because there's a lot to go through this morning. But I would like to say this. Commissioner Hill touched on the fact that we have some troops in harm's way. I just, as a combat veteran myself, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. I don't care what your beliefs are, if you believe in what we're doing today or not. My ask is this. We have military that serve our country that are in harm's way. So I just ask you to support the military. I'm not asking anyone to take a position on whether it's right or wrong that we're over there. But please understand that they volunteered to serve our country and they deserve that respect from all of us. So with that, I'd like to thank my wife. I always tend to forget to mention her at these things, but my wife Allison joins me here today. And 7 years I've been in this office, and this will be my 7th distinct honor of giving the 7th State of the City address on this stage. And I got to tell you, these 7 years, I couldn't do what I do today if it weren't for the support of my family. So my wife and my kids have been my rock for 7 years, and I appreciate the fact that she's able to join us here today. So thank you for that. Thank you, Rick and Cassie, for all you do at the chamber, the board, and the ambassadors. Without you, we couldn't do events like this. And I think you guys are all second to none. So thank you for that. Without further ado, I would like to recognize staff. We have 3 tables of some of the employees from the city of East Peoria joining us here today. I know Rick pointed out our first responders. We're going to touch on the departments when we get into the city services side of things. But I would like all of the employees of the city of East Peoria, please stand up and be recognized. These guys work their tails off, so please give them a round of applause. Thank you for being here and thank you for what you do each and every day. So we employ between 180 and 240 employees. The reason why it fluctuates with East Side, we have a lot of part-time positions throughout the seasonal times of year. So it does fluctuate, but we appreciate the efforts of all of them. Couldn't do what we do without them. And within the last 3 years, since I was here a year ago, we've had 3 longtime employees retire, and we've got 3 new folks that have joined us and come on board. So hopefully they have long, healthy careers with the city of East Peoria. So we're glad to have them on our team. Elected officials. I know the commissioners are here today, so I'm going to ask the commissioners to please stand. Please stand, all of you. Thank you, all 4 of you. Come on, Sutherland, you can do it. There you go. When you talk about rocks and support, we're on our 7th year, just wrapping up our 7th year together in our 2nd term. And I got to tell you, these guys have been absolutely amazing in their roles as elected officials and all the great things that we have going on in East Peoria. Thanks to you, thanks to the staff, and thanks to a city council that supports everything that we do. So thank you guys for your service. We also have some state elected officials, I believe, in the audience. Not sure where Rick assigned the seats at, but please stand up and be recognized. I know Senator Kaler was here. Representative Chun. and we thank them for their service as well. Okay, so here's a little snapshot of where we stand financially. Proud to say East Peoria remains in a very strong position, both financially and from a budget standpoint. This is a proposed budget that the council is preparing to vote on at the next, we'll do the first reading at the next council meeting, and then we'll finalize it at the first meeting in April. So our fiscal year begins May 1st. So this is what we're looking at this year, just under $77 million in revenue. As you see on expenses, I like to be transparent up here. We actually work off a balanced budget, may not look like it, but in parentheses, you'll see there with the 79 million in expenses, we still have $3 million in bond debt to help construct the new police station. And we'll touch on that in a little bit. So I've spoken to this before. One thing this council has done an excellent job of is when it comes budget time, we're a commission form of government. And for a number of years, what that meant, every commissioner represents a specific department. In years past, when I was a commissioner on the council, everybody kind of worked in silos, and your job was to show up at budget time and fight for your department. We don't do things that way. This council's been very great about looking at the city as a whole. So we separate our operating and our capital out in two different categories, and then we put it all together when it's time to approve the overall budget. So this year, as you can see, on the operating side of things, we're at about $64 million. And then capital, we're a little over $14 million. And we'll break those down here shortly. I also like to mention that as we wrap up this fiscal year, which ends April 30th, the council, since the first meeting in February, and this will run through the second meeting in April, we have about $1.5 million worth of capital left to spend. And we have been feverishly trying to spend that money. So here in the recent few meetings, you've seen a lot of big capital purchases. Those were all planned and budgeted items. We do a 5-year capital plan that rolls through the year. But heading into this year, we had some larger capital expenses. And as business people, I'm sure you can appreciate the fact that costs have gone up drastically in the last few years. Just to give you a little snippet, a brand new squad car today, fully outfitted, is about $66,000 a piece. So nothing's cheap. So I appreciate the fact that the council's been supportive of getting some of the purchases done yet this fiscal year. I also put up here just to show people how healthy our pension funds are. We have a breakdown. The dollar amounts next to each of the police, fire, and the IMRF pension funds, those are the dollar amounts the city contributes on an annual basis. And then in parentheses, you'll see what percentage those are funded at. So, 10 years ago when I got on the council, the police and fire pension funds were in the 40s. So we've really made great strides in doing the right thing to try to fully fund our pensions. This is just a pie chart. I include this every year to give people an idea of what funds the capital improvements are coming out of. Overall this year, we have a little over $14 million in capital improvements, and we'll break those down. But these are, I know sometimes the public gets frustrated with elected people, like, why aren't you spending more on streets? Why aren't you spending more on this or that? We have funds, and sometimes those funds are restricted to certain uses. So we like to include a pie chart so everyone understands where the finances are going. I'm going to touch on city services, and I try to mix this up every year on which department I start with because I don't want them to think I have favorites, because I appreciate all of them. We're going to begin with the police department this year. So at Clock Tower and Camp, I've talked about this before. We're constructing a new police station. River City folks are here in the audience today. This place is absolutely stunning. It's a 2-story building. Can't miss it. You won't miss it. This is a snapshot of the finished product, what it will look like at nighttime. And I think I've touched on this before because I want to point this out. On that fin wall, which is right behind the American flag, the wall that sticks out, it will be prominent. That is the badge. That's the patch on every officer's uniform. And that's a sense of pride to these guys. And There's only a couple things that I asked for on that police station that I wanted to weigh in on. I've been pretty good about staying out of their lane as far as the design and all that. I wanted that patch on that fin wall, and whether you're going eastbound or westbound on Camp, you're going to see it. You can't miss the fact that that's our police station. The second thing that I asked for are wall graphics. And where that came from, we toured some police stations when we were looking at some ideas of what we should do, whether you rehab a building or build new. And the first police station we toured, they had these really motivational, cool wall graphics that I thought really nailed it. Because I think in today's world, it's important to tell these guys how much you appreciate what they do to keep us safe. And so I did ask the chief yesterday, I slipped this next slide in here, if I could cheat a little bit. I have not seen any of them. So there's some really motivational ones for the officers, and then there's some other ones that are really important to the community as a whole. So he shared with me, this is just a snippet of one. One of the wall graphics, and the chief has been working really hard on this, is going through the history of the police department. And they're going to lay out by decade the history of the East Peoria Police Department, and these will be permanently affixed to the walls. And it goes by decade from the 1880s, I believe, is when it started, all the way through present. So I think that's pretty cool. All right, a little bit about the police department. Here's some stats that I put up because I think it's important for people to realize the town of 23,000 people. You know, I get people question, well, why do we have 51 sworn officers? Well, look at the first thing that's on there. We run literally almost 31,000 calls for service in a given year. That's an uptick of 11%. And people are like, oh my gosh, what is going on in East Peoria? I'll tell you what's going on. Our department's proactive. That's what's going on. And there's a reason for it. We have an obligation to protect the life and safety of not just our residents, but our businesses. And we take that obligation very seriously. SRO program, I know the schools are here. We have found it very, very beneficial. We have an SRO program with the elementary District 86. And that SRO officer also, I think, works with Robine as well. And then we have two with 86 and one with District 309. And we find great value in that program. I know there's some folks down in Springfield that would like to see that program go away. I encourage all our state lawmakers, revisit that. If anything, come to East Peoria. Go to our school districts. They're here. They'll be the first ones to tell you how valuable that program is today. And I know Officer Gifhorn is one of the 86 officers, and I try not to call people out by name because then I hurt feelings, but she was one of the officers just recognized. Tazewell County Chiefs Association just did their inaugural award dinner, and it was here about a week and a half ago, and she was one of 9 officers on the East Peoria Police Department to get recognized. And it had something to do with a program initiative that she created with 86 that's outstanding and very well received. Just people may not know this, we actually have 2 canine officers, and my understanding is one of them will be retiring this year. And the council in this next budget, we've budgeted to purchase another canine when that dog retires. So appreciate the long and lengthy service. They work really hard and do a great job. Tremendous asset to the community. I put forward reform on here, and it's going to be in a couple places in my presentation. And I know Senator Kaler and Representative Chung, they've already heard from me. They both responded. I know down in Springfield, there's a lot of good folks that understand our plight. Every taxing body in here that's present is dealing with the same issue. But I want people to understand on the police side of things with body camera and all that, the volume is so ungodly. I'm not even exaggerating when I tell you how time consuming this is. And I know people are all about transparency, but holy cow, we need help. We need help big time. We are drowning in this. And that is taking away valuable resources and time from people that are charged with keeping us safe. So we spend a lot of time on that. The East Peoria Fire Department. So we have 49 sworn personnel. I put that up there. We're a little short staffed right now, but I talked to the chief. We should be maybe one short maybe. Hopefully we don't lose anyone. Listen, it's really competitive. When it comes to police and fire, and this is the first time really in the history of East Peoria that we've been dealing with this on the fire side of it, we're all competing for the same pool of candidates. And it's really, really tough to draw these people in. So, but we appreciate their service. I did put on here, our calls for service declined a little bit with 500 Centennial closing. They were a frequent flyer customer of ours, and without their presence, the calls for service are down a little bit. But we're soon, I think we'll see an uptick in that in the near future again. But they run a lot of calls. I asked the chief to share some stats that I find fascinating because our fire department, I don't think they get enough credit. They're ALS certified paramedics. A lot of communities don't have that. They're not just firefighters. But the average response time for the East Peoria Fire Department was 5 minutes and 24 seconds on a call for service, which is outstanding. I know currently we're running out of 4 stations. The last snippet down on the bottom, the city council's talked about this. Our hope is to build a new central station within the next 2 to 3 years. And then once that, it'll be in probably a different location than where it's at today. We'll pivot at that time and go back down to 3 stations. But they also do business inspections. I know a lot of businesses that are used to seeing our guys coming through, but they did a little over 400 last year, which is about half, a little less than half of the businesses that we have here in East Peoria. They do a fire prevention program through District 86. They do that every year. And then we also do free monthly car seat checks down at Central House, and we advertise those, and that's a free service. And I'm telling you, it's a great service. You'd be shocked at how many people don't put car seats in right. And then they also taught CPR class to the freshmen at East Peoria Community High School this past year. And then I did have a stat on there that I skipped over, the 52% return of spontaneous circulation following a cardiac arrest. 52%. The national average is 24 to 30. So if that doesn't tell you how good our folks are, that should. We appreciate their service. And then we threw a little picture in there because you never know what call for service is. They actually pulled this little fur baby out of a ravine that was missing for a couple days. Okay, there's a lot on this screen to go over. This is water and sewer. And we're going to work to update our pictures. That's why it's hidden in the back. But there's a lot to go over. So with courts department, I wanted to lay out what we've completed this year. And I'm not going to go down the list of things. Please peruse through them. But in 2026, we got some things that we'd like to accomplish. I know Commissioner Sutherland's here. He's made it clear for 7 years. He's here just to lay pipe and get that infrastructure improved. So we got some big pipe purchases coming up this year. And actually, Court just found out Monday that he's got some more to buy to round out this year to get some projects wrapped up yet this year. But we got a big Arnold Road project coming up. We've done a lot of lining of pipe, which lengthens the life of pipe versus replacing new, which is extremely expensive and take us forever. We have a lot of aged infrastructure in East Peoria, as you can tell by the boil orders. So we're really trying to put an emphasis on fixing the old. Street maintenance program, we touch on streets every year. This year we've allocated $1.7 million towards residential street improvements, and that includes heat scarification, fog and seal coating. We found that to be an extremely beneficial, a little more costly on the upfront side of it. But on the backside, the streets tend to last longer. We've made great strides. This council's made great strides. Got to give them credit. In years past, there were some years where the city wasn't even spending $500,000 or $600,000 on streets. And as you can imagine, East Peoria is spread out. There's a lot of roadway to cover, and we are falling very far behind. And in the last 7 years, we've made tremendous gains. I put Pinecrest up here, $1.2 million. So if folks remember, we did 2 stages of Pinecrest improvements on the concrete side of it. We're going to wrap that up this year, and we've got $1.2 million. We're going to repair the concrete from 474 to Moeller, And then we're going to the entire stretch of the blacktop, the center lanes, all the way from 74 down to Muller. We're going to redo those this year. So that should be a fairly good new looking roadway when it's all said and done. And then I put on here Conference Center Drive, the overflow parking lot. There's a new hotel being constructed on the riverfront. We'll touch on the timeline there in a second. But that overflow lot, that is one of the commitments the city made. We're going to go down and make some improvements in that. As it stands today, we allow a lot of semis to park there. Civic Center, typically, we're super good partners on that, allowing them to use that parking lot. But once these improvements are made, that's going to have to shift. But we've got that in the cards. You're going to start seeing some improvements being made yet this fiscal year to that parking lot. West Washington, I've got in there the crosswalk and some additional parking. So the Blue Town complex is about done. The commercial space, there's going to be a crosswalk that goes from Blue Town that cuts over towards the Panera Target area. And then we're going to add a few, probably about 6, if I had to guess. I think Rob's in the audience. About 6 additional parking spaces on the north side of West Washington to accommodate that. And then I just put a little snippet on here. My unfunded mandate speech, I won't harp on it too much, but there was a new law that went into effect January 1st. And as a utility provider, we're required now to, when there's a Julie call in, we have to do stormwater locates now. Something we've never had to do. Brett Tucker's here. He's been with us for 30 years. He's never had to do that. Well, that requires that we have somebody on call to make sure that we meet that positive response. So East Side Center. So we're wrapping up the turf jobs and the dugouts of fields 8 and 9 this year. That's about a $2.5 million project that should be completed here shortly. And I touch on that because this council has invested nearly $11 million in the last 4 years in East Side. We recently, Corey and his staff sent me these pictures of the new equipment. There was a fitness center that was going out of business in Kickapoo that Corey came to us and said, hey, they're looking to offload some new equipment. Our stuff was a little dated, barely used. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, heavily used when the city opened East Side. But anyway, we added some new equipment up there. We are going to take a pause on doing field 5 and 6, at least for this year. And I'll touch on why here in a couple more slides. But Corey and his staff, just so you guys know, they also are responsible for a lot of the ground maintenance that you see throughout the city. The city has a number of properties that we maintain and a few of the IDOTs that we may or may not touch since they don't. Annual events. So Corey, recently we brought in some of the hoteliers and restaurants and some of the businesses recently to go through his calendar of events up at Eastside. It's booked. I mean, it's full. It's another full year. We've got a lot of everything: volleyball, soccer, baseball, softball, track, you name it. But we also have a lot of events that East Peoria hosts that I want to recognize up here because they're great nonprofit events, do a lot of good work, and they deserve the recognition, and we're great to partner with them. But this year in November, obviously, it'll be our 42nd Festival of Lights Parade. We had another successful year last year. Farmers Market, Commissioner Hill kind of heads that up, and I just asked him Tuesday night, what are the timelines of that? It sounds like first Friday in June through the end of August. So he's also looking for some help. So if any volunteers are willing to help out with the farmers market, please reach out to Emma or someone at the city, and we'd be glad to guide you to Commissioner Hill. He's looking for some friends. Cars and Coffee, that's a big deal. It's down on the riverfront, Bass Pro area. That kicks off again in April and runs through October. And they also do the Friday night lights too, by the way. That's very, very well attended. We have the Teresa Tracy Trot again this year. That's an all-volunteer nonprofit organization that has contributed about $1.3 million. 100% of the proceeds stayed here locally, and between Carle Health, OSF, Illinois Cancer Care, and Dr. Gandhi at the University of Illinois College of Medicine. So appreciate their efforts. That's always the first Saturday in November, draws about 700 and some participants down on the riverfront, a great cause. Center for Prevention of Abuse, we actually have 2 events that we host for them. One in April and then the big duck race in August, and I think August this year is the 22nd. Another outstanding organization. T1D, I know Rick McDonald's in the audience, his wife, I think she pretty much is in charge of that. That's down on the riverfront. It shifted down there last year. Another great cause. That used to be the JDRF for folks that may or may not know that. We appreciate that, and we always enjoy partnering with them. Easter Seals, we host 2 events for them, one in April and another one in July. And we always appreciate what those folks do. And they got a big year coming up this year. I think later this year they're doing a big event with Caterpillar, to recognize Caterpillar and their contributions. Red, White, and Boom, July 4th, America's 250th birthday. So I don't have news to share other than last year at the tail end of it, when we kind of regroup and talk about what we want to do for the next year, Mike Wild had mentioned the idea of it's America's 250th. Would we be willing to kick in a little more and do something special to make the display even greater and more patriotic? And of course, we're quick to say yeah. And I'm just throwing this out there because I've not heard from anybody. But despite all the stuff going on around us, this is a big deal. And East Peoria remains committed and willing to support that. So we look forward to that. For folks that have been on the East Peoria side, we did something a little different last year. We added meridian barriers down there, and we kind of had everything locked down for a safety reason. That was stemmed from the incident down in New Orleans. We're not going to have that on our watch, but I got to tell you, our first responders and all the staff that was involved down there on the riverfront, it was a safe event. And we had nothing but accolades from families that felt really, really comfortable. So I encourage anyone, if you've not seen the display in person, join us down there, America's 250th. And with that, we're a participant in the America 250 thing. And we've already, if you go down in the Levy District, you'll see we've got some banners up. And these are some snippets of the banners that we had made up with East Peoria on it. But this was a nonpartisan initiative that was actually established in 2016. And this commission was charged with doing something big for our 250th birthday. So they've reached out, and I think every state is involved. So we've partnered with the state. It's a big deal. So Illinois got a lot of big things planned for this year, and so does East Peoria. I know Emma, Gina, I think Gina's in here. Kendra's in here. They've created this 250 committee, if you will, and the library's got a lot of events planned for this year as well. The city, our big thing, we want to do something big for the 4th of July, and then we're going to have some events throughout the year. But some of the things that I put on there, we're looking for buildings. We really don't have any tall buildings for murals, but that's one of the ideas is to do something historic murals. We've done the banners, and we're going to do decals on sidewalks and things of that sort. So if anyone has any ideas, throw it out there. And I'm putting in a shameless plug for John Morse at the Peoria Riverfront Museum. That exhibition, please, I beg you, if you've not been through there, try to go when he's there, because that guy is phenomenal. But it's called The Promise of Liberty. And right here in Peoria, they have these historical documents that you won't see anywhere else in the United States. And I'm not just being a John Morse up here telling you something because you're like, what's the catch? There is no catch. We had him present in front of the Heart of Illinois Mayors Association about 2 weeks ago. And man, his passion really comes out on stuff like this. This has nothing to do with politics. You go through there and you see things that you would only see if you went to Philadelphia or Washington, D.C. You don't have to go there. So I want to give him a shameless plug. He's wanting to do community events, is what he offered to the 20-some mayors that were present, was reach out to him and he's going to designate a community day for their communities and invite the public to go through and see this exhibition. So I encourage you, if you haven't, please go check it out. I'm not going to go into detail on this. We've talked about this before, but the city has officially adopted its 2045 comprehensive plan. For those that don't know it, we're required to adopt a comprehensive plan, and I listed all the key elements, what's involved in that. But really, it's a long-range document that helps drive the city moving forward, what we want to see, whether it's land use, transportation, parks and recreation, economic development. But the council, I appreciate the fact that they adopted this. A lot of work went into it. A lot of public engagement went into this process. We thank all those who put that together for us. Okay, why'd he put some cheesy picture he took off his phone of his desktop? Has anyone been to the www.cityofeldpeoria.com website? I'm not asking you to raise your hand. We put lipstick on this pig about 3 years ago, and that's what you see today. And I'm happy to announce we are finally redesigning our webpage. Emma and Morgan are working really hard with Civic Plus. We've reached out to all the departments. We've asked for their feedback. A lot of stuff's antiquated. A lot of stuff's not user-friendly. Folks, this is where people start when they want to know about your story. And we got a lot to brag about, so we're going to refresh that. And, you know, I didn't sit in the last meeting, but Emma said, listen, I know you're not going to be there, but what do you want to see out of that? And I said, I want to see the first page. And we have a lot to be proud of. And she said, well, can you share that with me? I said, sure. How about that? East of Paradise, baby. Didn't think I was going to slip it in there, did you guys? I told you I was going to find a way. Listen, I want to thank all of our elected officials for their discipline, their respect, their character. These last 2 years, folks, have not been easy, and that's an understatement. And I got to tell you, I'm not using this platform. I'm not going to dump. I'm not going to lower my standards. These guys have kept the high road. There's a lot of stuff that's been stated in the media that's not true. But I'm here to tell you it doesn't matter at this point because we've never wavered in our position. This is the public statement, the only public statement that we've put out officially in 2 years of dealing with this. And we've never wavered in our position. Boyd is a private company. The gaming board, they do their thing. From our perspective, they have every right to choose where they want to be located and how they choose to spend their capital. We've never wavered in our position through thick and thin. And I know some things have been said about going behind. We never did any of that. I stayed out of their way. That was between them and the gaming board. And I appreciate the fact the gaming board gave their final approval on the redevelopment plan. I'd love to see something started here in May, June, maybe. I don't know. That's up to Boyd. We'll wait and hear from Boyd on that. But I want everybody here to know how much we appreciate the fact Boyd's making that investment right here in East Peoria. So we're super pleased. Those were the headlines out of some article that I came across, not locally here. It was actually from Las Vegas, I believe. But I wanted to share what our official statement was on that. But I publicly wanted to thank the commissioners. I know it's been really hard to keep your mouth shut on some of the things that have been said, and I appreciate you guys for that. And I appreciate the Paradise staff. They're exceptional, and we couldn't be more thrilled. We're just as excited as you guys to see this thing stay here, and I can't wait to see what the finished product is. So it's going to benefit this region. For anyone that has any doubt, since 1991, over $200 million in revenue has been shared between Peoria and East Peoria and lifted this region. That's pumped back into our economy. $200 million. This is a $160 million investment right here in Central Illinois. Something we can all be proud of. Okay, Just to give an update on the far left side of that screen, folks have been wondering, and I think the sign's up on it now. That's the only diagram I had of the Chase Bank building going up in front of Kroger. Chase is building a new bank there at the Four Corners. Brienzo's, we had announced that. They're one of the tenants in the Bluetown commercial space. Talked to Bo. He's a little aggressive, I think, on his timeline. He's hoping to have something up and running by May 1st. But they're working really hard on that space to build it out. And then on the bottom left-hand corner, that's the new Hampton Inn going down on the riverfront. Talked to Nicole Wright. She's the new general manager there for Frontier. They're looking to open that property May 1st. So as you pulled in here, you saw that the Hampton flag's off this property. Not my place to disclose, but there's some big news coming on that soon. In the center, for those that are wondering, there's a new Mexican restaurant that recently opened, Los Charros, down, used to be the old Applebee's, and then I think it was Social Taco. But anyway, our family dined in there a couple of times. Great people. I think they're out of either Galesburg or Macomb originally, but they expanded over here. Glad to have them as part of our community. And then Oh My Bob's, you see the commercials. Bob's Discount Furniture took over Office Max. Listen, it's always a good win when you can backfill empty space. So we appreciate them. I know Rick and I went down for their ribbon cutting with some other folks. Commissioner Hill was there, but they're really good people, and they hired a lot of folks. Almost all of them are local here, so we appreciate that. And then CXT Roasting, I kept that up there. They have signed a lease agreement with Flaherty and Collins as one of the tenants in the Bluetown commercial space. So, Center Street Crossing. Earlier I said we're going to take a little pause on Eastside Center this year. Here's why. We, in front of the City Council within the next month, will be 2 development agreements. One with Flaherty and Collins for the next phase down Center Street, which we announced the Center Street Crossing project. They're going to do another mixed-use development similar to what is constructed next to City Hall. That'll be down Center Street. And then with that, we partnered with another developer that partners with Flaherty at projects over in the Indianapolis area. And part of our commitment is improving the infrastructure down Center Street. So we're already kind of busy on that. I know some engineering's already being done, and we've got some things that we have to do. But if you have not been down there, you look behind CEFQ, that's all cleared now. Look behind Costco, that's all cleared. And that's what's going on there, because we're ready to move forward, hoping to break ground either late summer or fall time of this year on both projects. So what's the second part? We weren't able to announce this last year, but Elevate Office. So I encourage you to look them up. It's a really, really cool concept. Ty, Jeff, and I traveled to Indianapolis to visit with the owners and then go through a couple of their facilities that they have in that area. And really, these are business office suites, and there'll be over 140 of them in there. And it's kind of an incubator for entrepreneurs and small businesses to get started. But the concept is cool. It's month-to-month rent, no strings attached. It's all inclusive. I think the rents start at $5.99 and go up from there, is what they shared with us. But it's in our latest discussion, I know the construction impact, it says 7 to 8 million. That slide was from last year. It's about $8 million is our understanding in our recent conversations with them. But I did get their permission to share this. They're about as excited to be here as we are to have them. But this is a really cool thing. When you go in there, you got your own mailbox. It's 24/7, 365, video surveillance. You can access it at any time, as a business owner. But when you look at the ones that we visited, they're full. So if they lose a tenant 1 month, they've already got a tenant to backfill it. And really, their goal is to elevate people. That's where the elevate comes from. Elevate these people to move on to bigger and better spaces and stay in the community. By community, by the way, I mean region, the Peoria area. So we're super excited to get that kicked off. They want to start construction this year. That literally will be the building that goes behind the center tap and the CEFQ property to go perpendicular to Center Street crossing, but we're super excited to have them as a partner. People wonder about the bells. I know the council was criticized when they took down the bell tower. That was by design, hoping to redevelop that four corners. We didn't get rid of the bells. We restored the bells. And the bells had not worked in a number of years. So we invested money to have the bells refurbished. And there's three components here. The company that refurbishes the bells and then works on the electronics to make the bells work. And then we just, we're about 8 to 10 weeks out on the fabrication. So this is what the design is going to look like. That goes at the point of Levy Park. So right at West Washington and Richland, where they mirror up. So we've got it in fabrication now, and then we're working with Rob at Fairgram. He is engineering the bases, which will be just as you see here with the electrical to go through it, because the bells will be working and they will toll on the hour. So that's pretty exciting. Big part of East Peoria's history. All right. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on here. I want to be respectful of the senator and the representative, because I will say, as I talk about the challenges that we face, and I think I talk about this a lot, because I don't think people realize the impact it has on local government on these unfunded mandates. This is just a snippet, and I'm not pointing fingers at any one lawmaker, just for the record. But these are challenges that we face day in and day out. I just saw a news story of Mayor Ali down in Springfield, and the headlines read, "The mayor opposes the governor." Let me tell you something. She serves on the executive committee of the Illinois Municipal League. And her role, the Illinois Municipal League, represents all 1,294 towns, cities, and villages, including East Peoria and Peoria. She's on the executive committee. Illinois Municipal League is very involved and active. They're our voice in Springfield. And when the governor announced in his State of the City that he had another preemptive, and I call it preemption, it's down at the bottom of local authority, yet another thing on housing to take away local authority from local governments. We got to start standing up to this. And it's not a political thing. It's not a Democrat or Republican thing. People need to understand local government impacts your daily life more than any level of government. They may argue at the higher level, but trust me when I tell you, we're it. And this is getting so difficult because you're at the point where you're going to see a lot of communities either cut services or raise taxes. It's one or the other. We have done such a good job trying to toe our line in East Peoria, but it is getting more and more difficult. So just to give you guys a little snippet, the pensions, there was another effort to roll back Tier 2. I showed you a screenshot. We've gone from 40% to almost 70% in funding. You roll that back, we start over. We can't afford that. I appreciate why the new folks want that. Yeah, who wouldn't? I'd want it. I don't have a problem with them asking. I got a problem with them getting it because they're not paying for it, the people making these decisions. Healthcare mandates, expansion of employee leave and benefits. When you do this to employers, my only ask, I don't care if you're a D or an R and you're in Springfield, come have a conversation, which I give Senator Kaler and Representative Chung, they're two that absolutely respond, whether it's what I want to hear or not. I appreciate that. Because it is about respect, is a two-way street. So I'm not here to dump on them. I'm here to tell you folks, it is a real problem that we have to figure out. We got to come to terms with it. I didn't even put property taxes on there. That's another story that we all have to deal with, especially with education funding. But I want to stress the importance, how it impacts local government when these decisions are made. You know, the 1% grocery tax, I won't name her. She's got a commercial out now. She's got her 3 kids there. She's super proud that as a state lawmaker, she voted to get rid of it. Folks, it wasn't their money to get rid of. That was a deal cut back in the 90s that basically local governments gave up their ability to impose taxes. So the state imposed a 1% tax. That didn't go to the state, that came to us. How do we pay for this stuff? So it basically forced our hand at the local level, and there's no judgment here because not every community did it, to impose that at the local level and be the bad guys. So there you have it. I always like to give a shout out to our community partners. And this year I asked for 5 highlights from all of them just to touch on and give them the recognition they deserve, because they all play such an important role in our community, and I think they deserve it. They don't get a platform like this. So there's a lot of information to go through up here, but District 86, Tony sent me a snapshot of some of the highlights here. I know we talked about the SRO program, and then they continue, and they have for a number of years. Our schools have continued to focus on safety and improvements. There's a lot of schools, a lot of aged buildings. I can tell you some of the schools look the same from, I give my age away, but when I went there like 50 some years ago. But we appreciate what they do with what they have. And then they conducted a joint, I talk about this because this is about collaboration and the importance of collaboration. You have a lot of feeder schools that go into our school districts, but just the idea that they're working with the other schools and the other districts and collaborating together says a lot about their character. So I appreciate the fact that he's got that up there. And then the partnership, I touched on this with Peoria Riverfront Museum, or maybe I didn't. One of the things that I love about that, and John likes to brag about, is there are some very generous donors that contribute a lot of money to make sure that every student in the state of Illinois gets a free pass into the Peoria Riverfront Museum. And that is phenomenal. And you should see these kids. I mean, that's the highlight sometimes of probably their year, because there's so much cool stuff there. But our schools have been a partner with in that program for, I think, since the beginning. So that's a really good deal. And then down at the bottom, he's got some stats that he shared with us. 309, Damon. Damon's new in his role here. He's the new superintendent this year. He sent these highlights here. And we talk about the partnership with Caterpillar. And I know some of our staff joined Rick and went and toured the SS building this week. I couldn't go. I had meetings. I think it was on Wednesday. And when I grew up here, and this was all cat country, my dad had a great career in Caterpillar. Most of it was out at the Mapleton foundry. But I will tell you, as a kid, when I went in there, you know, factories were dark and dingy and, you know, filthy, and a lot of people, you would be blown away. All the more reason why it's important to start at this level. And is what I would love to see, and I don't know how to make it happen because I'm not an authority to do it. I'd love to see our students be able to tour that factory. Because when you see in today's modern world what a factory looks like, you could eat off that floor. But the technology, and you talk about all the various jobs that are available. We talk about workforce, and we're going to touch on that here in a second. But you talk about workforce and all the opportunities that are out there, just absolutely blows me away. But if you don't show or have the means to show these people what those opportunities are, then a lot of them may not even consider that. But I think that's phenomenal. And then average GPA for students in extracurricular activities is 3.49, which is something to be proud of. They redid all the parking lots in concrete down there at the high school. That was long overdue, and that really looks sharp. And the tennis courts. So 3 out of 4 of our kids played tennis. Man, those are nice. Thanks to the Park District for that too, because I tell you, I wish our kids could have played on those courts. Those are awesome. Partnership with Fond du Lac Township Midwest Food Bank to provide food packages for 75 student families. I think people underestimate the level of poverty in this area, and we always appreciate those nonprofits in our schools and volunteers and people that are generous with their time and money to help feed our families. And then down there at the bottom, 740 college credit hours completed through ICC's dual credit program with an average student GPA of 3.36. That's a big deal. Our kids all did that, and we're grateful. And they're grateful now. They weren't at the time when we were encouraging them to do it. Okay, ICC, Bruce, thank you for sharing some highlights for ICC. Enrollment continues to grow. We got two of our, I call them crumb crunchers, but they're not, they're adults now, going there, their freshman year. Student success above the national average. They continue to achieve higher success rates above the national average. The Good Jobs Challenge Grant, and we've talked about that before, but that is a great grant. And when you look at the stats on that, with 2,800 participants, more than 200 employees are hired. Graduates are upskilled incumbent workers through that program. Workforce equity initiative, that's something we've touched on for the last 3 years. I know we have that Workforce Sustainability Center up there at ICC, but the timing of everything, I've been in this office since 2019, and that was talked about well before I came into office. But I really look at how you guys have embraced that here. Dr. Quirk Bailey's in the audience. I know she's retired, but that's a big deal because we recognize the need for skilled labor, and there were companies that were leaving this area because they couldn't fill these positions. That's how critical it is. So we appreciate their efforts here. Achieving the Dream Leader College of Distinction for advancing student successes. And they're also excited about their path to BU. That's something that you probably saw in the news here recently with Dr. Shadid, Bradley's president. That's always great. It goes back into the collaboration. We're one team. We all need to roll in the same direction. And I think it's important to keep talent here. How better to do that than to work together? Midwest Technical Institute. I know Cole's in the audience here tonight. Apologize for leaving their slide out last year. He did. He confirmed. He went back and he had sent me the slide and I didn't share it. But they're up off High Point Lane. So this is their job placement. He gave me a breakdown of the program. But at the top, they had 531 graduates in 2025. Of those 531, 82% were collectively placed in their chosen field of study. And then there's a breakdown of what they've done. He also pointed out that they started a new 30-week electrical program, and it's basic entry-level stuff. So appreciate that. They have 40 students currently enrolled with the first graduating class June 25th of this year. So once again, here's another entity that's helping teach skills. Fond du Lac Library. Where's Gina at? She here? She's all the way in the back. So I asked Gina for 5 highlights, and I got to be honest, I got 5 paragraphs. So I'm like, holy cow. I appreciate that about our friends at the library. We share some space. So I wasn't trying to slide anybody up here, but I had to kind of condense some stuff here. There's a lot to go over. But the visitors to our library increased by 5%, more than 160,000 visits this year. And I will tell you one of the things Gina included at the end of her notes to me. They welcome everybody, not just residents, to the library. You're welcome to go in and see what they have to offer. But they offered more than 530 programs and events, and which we've seen an uptick in participation in those programs and events as well. So that's something to be proud of. The third one there, they delivered. So you see the little van down there in the parking lot, but they delivered more than 1,000 items to housebound residents, which is a new program they started here 2-3 years ago, I believe, but it's really taken off. And then we talked about the borrowing from the library increased. The microfilm. So Gina sent me something. I didn't put it up here because then I'm for sure going to give my age away. But they've taken a lot of historical East Peoria newspapers and they digitized them, which is awesome. But to know that there's more than 80,000 pages of East Peoria area history in there. So what she sent was, apparently I was recognized on my 10th birthday. For the record, that was 50 years ago. I wasn't going to throw that in there. but it's just really, really cool stuff. So take advantage of what they have to offer there if you're interested. And then they also became a Family Search affiliate library, and which now provides on-site access to digital genealogical collections that are difficult to access outside. So all you buffs looking to find out what your family history is, good place to start is at the library. But once again, the bottom I think is really important. I want to keep harping on this: collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. But they've partnered with with the American Heart Association to begin with the heart to provide public access blood pressure monitors. So some of you may not think that's a big deal, but it's a big deal. Not everybody can afford that. Not everybody goes to the doctor. So the library's there to help you out, looking out for your health. So appreciate that. Fond du Lac Park District, Craig shared with me some highlights. They have a lot going on. Those that may or may not know, down there where the tumbling center was at, right off Springfield Road, that's a multi-purpose gym. They're repurposing that. The Tumble Group kind of grew out of the space and they relocated. So they have plans to repurpose that gym. They'll have recreational basketball leagues and then pickleball. Holy cow. I don't know how many people play pickleball? Show of hands. Are you guys nice people, or are you the mean people that show up and get super competitive with each other? I cannot believe our kids play that. It's fun to play. It's a great activity, but wow, is that really popular? But anyway, they got some plans for pickleball. He's got some stuff on renovating and reconfiguring the outdoor patio in front of the Covey. It's going to be called Wolf's Den. For those that don't know, Tom Wolf retired. He was the director up there for a long time. I think everyone knew Tom. Not sure if his dog's still around. It is, yeah. Yeah, that dog's a mainstay up there. Cooper South Park behind Jonah's. They're going to turn a lot of that space back into green space. Through the years, all the flooding really damaged all that concrete down there, and that stuff's expensive to maintain, especially when it's not utilized. So they got plans for that. Facility software upgrades down at the bottom include DaySmart for recreational programs, building and shelter rentals, Rover Pass for their campground, and 4UP for the golf courses. So our friends at the Park District have a lot going on, and I personally think a lot of our parks are underutilized. I can't forget the top one, Newman Park up there. Those renovations. If you've not been up there by the farm park lately, go up there. It's phenomenal. And I like to call it a hidden gem. We know it's here because we're from here, but a lot of people outside the area may not. But if you haven't been up there lately, go and see all the good things they've done up there. I want to give a shout out to my fellow mayors. I threw a slide in there last year talking about regional collaboration. Out of 24 of us, 21 of us were here about 2 weeks ago for a meeting. We hold meetings every 2 months. And I got to tell you, I want to give them a special shout out and thanks because they've been super supportive of the friction and the things going on of keeping that out of our business. And I've made it clear to all of them, you know, regionally, we got to be better than where we're at today. We really do. And there's a lot more things that are important than East Peoria, than Peoria, or any one given community. And we owe it to each other to lift each other up when we should, which is every day. But I told those mayors right to their face how much I appreciated their support and the character that they've demonstrated and the idea that we're all in this together and we all have an obligation to lift each other up. It's not a competition. You know, we serve in these positions to benefit our communities. And without one strong community in a region, it could sink the whole thing. All the more reason why I appreciate the community leaders we have and their support. All right, this is a tough one. A lot of people in the room probably know this gentleman. A lot of you may not. This is Dennis Vandiver. And Dennis passed away unexpectedly on February 23rd while he and his wife Mary were down in Florida. He's one of our coffee guys. Dennis meant so much to this community. And those that don't know him, that's by design. That guy was one of the most humblest, decent, kind-hearted people I've ever met in my life. And that's an understatement. This guy flew under the radar on about everything he did because what he did for this community was never about him. And I went back to try, what picture do I share? And why not? This guy was a lifelong Hoosier fan. They rolled my Tide, and Dennis never even went there with me to jab me, which I appreciated about him. I'm like, I had to bring it up first. I'm like, did you watch that game? He's like, yeah, I watched it. I'm like, good for you guys. Congratulations. A proud Hoosier. So I am so glad that Dennis had the opportunity to see his Hoosiers win the National Football Championship this year, but he's going to be sorely missed. So he was the president of the District 86 school board the last 3 of 11 years he served on that board when he stepped down in 2022. The guy was an election judge. You probably saw him at a polling place if you vote here in East Peoria. Always looking to help. He volunteered at all the IESA meets up there. Grueling heat, he would sit there. The guy was a champ for that. But there's so many things that he gave back to this community. But one thing he gave back to all of us, he was a Vietnam vet, and he is one that never talked about it. And my wife and I were in the visitation line, and the couple behind us got talking to the funeral director, and they said, we've known Dennis since his mid-20s. We've been friends with him and his wife. Had no idea the achievements the decorations that he received in the military, because he never openly talked about that. And I got to tell you, through this process, they learned that he actually had received one more achievement that his family didn't even know existed, which is a very high achievement. It was a Silver Cross. And I just can't say enough about this guy. He's a Bronze Star recipient, Purple Heart recipient, served us well in Vietnam, came home, went to work as a machinist at Caterpillar, and he was all about family and community. And super proud dad and grandpa, loved his grandkids, didn't miss a sporting event, but we're sure gonna miss him. He was part of our little coffee group where we solve the world's problems twice a week, and that seat's not gonna be vacant. But I couldn't think of really more fitting words than to let everybody know what he meant to all of us, and his presence is always gonna be here. I mean, whether it's our stories at the coffee table, the impression he left behind, which are lasting, and his acts of kindness. So many of them went unnoticed, but I appreciate the guy, and I'm going to miss him. And please keep Mary and her family in your prayers. And with that, I think I've rambled on enough. Thank you to everyone. You know, we all left this community, and I can't say enough about how grateful I am to be in this position and have the ability to work alongside so many good people. So thank you guys for all that you do. Thank you to the chamber, and thank you to all of our businesses for what you do to make us keep going and growing. So appreciate that. Hopefully I didn't bore you too much, but you guys have a great day. I think Rick's going to come up and close it out. But happy Friday. We finally made it to the end. Thank you.
I think another hand for the mayor. Anybody questions? You know, John, it's.
I didn't offer that, but if you're,
I mean,
I did. I just said you can tell them questions. I forgot. But if you do have questions, I'll stick around afterwards. I know a lot of people don't like to stand up in front of a crowd, but I'll be glad to stay by afterwards if you got any questions for me and you're afraid to ask them. But anything anyone's wondering about? No?
covered it all.
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on. No, the mayor touched on one thing that we at the chamber are very, very dedicated to, and with the help of Dr. Quirk Bailey and the schools, Tony and Damon and Bruce and everyone, is workforce. If you don't have workers, you can't operate. And if you can't operate, then that means we don't have members. So, it's all through that. And John mentioned the work with Caterpillar, of course, large employer. But we're also working on all the other aspects of it too, between hospitality, manufacturing, medical, finance, all these things that the students know. So workforce and supply chain, that's the big thing that we're working at. Engineers, you got to have engineers, you got to have the tradespeople, all of those people to make it happen. So again, GPLC, Greater Peoria Leadership Council, doing a great job, wearing Dennis out as a retired person. So, Dennis is on the exec board there, and Sheila's working there with those folks. So look out for that, because we're going to get you workers. We can guarantee that, right, Sheila? Got it. So we'll get you workers. So if you need things, holler at us. Just call us, let us know. Mayor, he's always available for that. So law enforcement, firemen, just as Mayor mentioned. So with that, mark your calendars. April 24th is the medical community. Dr. Knapp, Michelle Conger, and then Dr. Iyer are going to be here to talk about what's going on in the medical community, which we did that last year, and I think it was very, very well received. So a lot of information. They're going through a lot of transitions there. So that'll be a good one. May is the Mayor's Prayer Breakfast, so we'll get that going. So a lot of things coming down the road. So again, can't thank you enough, and have a safe day. And if you have questions, Mayor's here. All right, thank you.